Welcome back to Tater Talk. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Haley.
And in today's episode, we will be talking all things potato expertise at Lamb Weston with Steve Banworth. Steve Banworth is our Vice President of Global Agricultural Services. And we'll be honest, he is nowhere on the internet. So that's all we have about him. He is a ghost.
Yes. Yeah, which, good for him.
Yeah.
And all the more reason for him to tell us about himself and to tell all of you about himself as well. So we are so excited to have Steve on the show today.
Well, we will jump right in. Thank you, Steve, for joining us today. We are going to start with a very vague and broad question, but it's going to be, can you just talk a little bit more about your position and what you do at Lamb Weston?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys for doing this morning, and I do appreciate allowing the Global Ag Services team a chance to kind of tell us what we do. So I've been in the ag business for over 40 years. I've worked for Lamb Weston for 17 years. I was part of an acquisition in 2008 when ConAgra owned Lamb Weston, and I was part of the 100 Circle Farm, the infamous 100 Circle Farm, which we refer to as the company farm today. I was one of the principals there when that got transitioned over to Lamb Weston. So I've been with Lamb Weston since 2008. And I joined Lamb Weston primarily because I've been on both sides of the desk. I sold product to Lamb, and now I buy product for Lamb. So I've seen a full gamut of what it takes to grow potatoes, what it takes to develop potatoes, harvest potatoes into high-valued finished potato products for Lamb Weston. So I've come the full scope of that over many years. But one of the things that attracted me to Lamb Weston more than anything, and specifically the ag side, is its long legacy of producing high quality potatoes in the Pacific Northwest. Lamb Weston many years ago had chosen the Pacific Northwest to source its raw potatoes, and there was a lot of smart people a long time ago who realized this was like the cornucopia of environment for growing potatoes. So I'd like to think after 40 years, I had so much to do with that. I really didn't. What I did is get to work with a lot of smart people that helped me develop that agronomically along the way. So, but what I do specifically for Lamb Weston in this role is the easiest way to explain it is wherever Lamb Weston has a plant around the globe, myself and a very great team of talented folks help me source potatoes and make sure we get those potatoes to each one of these facilities each and every day. That's a very high level of what I do. We make sure that we have supply. When the commercial team puts their plans out, we make sure those potatoes are there on time at the way they want them, when they want them, and how our customers expect them. We make sure they're always competitively cost in line with our regional competition. And we try to do it each and every day in a sustainable way, in a way that takes care of our ground. We are great stewards. We ensure our growers are great stewards of their property. But we try to hold them accountable to make sure that we'll be growing those potatoes on that ground for a long time for many future generations. So I'm very proud of the sustainability work that's involved with our crop development. But again, overarching is our mantra is we have to have supply. That's our goal. We have to always be competitively cost, and we got to make sure that ground continues to grow potatoes for many years, just not that one season. So that's basically what I do.
Oh, basically.
You're like, to make it simple.
Yeah.
Yep, that's basically what I do. And then everything else directed by management. So
That's awesome. Well, I do kind of have a bit of a follow-up because Steve, you have next to no digital presence. So we have really no idea about you before Lamb Weston. I just would be curious to know your life before you came here and what all led you to Lamb Weston as well.
yeah, so just like a little earlier there, well, I grew up in South Texas. My family was in the farming business. I've been in the farming business since, I don't even want to say how long, but I've been in the farming business since 1983 when I graduated from Texas A&M. Got out of there, started working with my family, and I farmed. And then I realized that farming was really hard work. So I decided to get on the processing side of this thing because certainly you can make more money in the processing side than you could on the farming side. So I'm being very transparent. But yeah, it started a long time ago, fell in love with the business. It's a great culture. There's great people in the farming business. Family farms are the backbone of a lot of what goes on in the United States in regards to agriculture. And one of the things that I've learned after 40 plus years of being in the ag business is that it doesn't matter whether I'm sitting in a field in China, Argentina, Europe, or in the middle of Idaho. Every grower is the same way. They battle with weather, they battle with finances, they battle with labor issues. It doesn't matter. Cultural is all level set. Cultural differences are level set when it gets into the economics of how we develop our products. And that's what makes it fun. And I've said that for whatever commodity that I've done for over 40 years is the people that we work with, the legacy that Lamb has developed over many, many years is that people want to do business with Lamb because of our consistency, because of our integrity. They want to do business because they see a growing company. And I get the privilege and the honor of being able to take those virtues and those values and go wherever we decide to grow on the planet and try to do the same thing everywhere we go. That's the joy of it, right? So again, I came from a long line of farming family. I came from a long line of processing business. But at the end of the day, the greatest gift is working with the people that help me put together these plans all over the planet. But again, I'll just leave the audience with the idea that it doesn't matter whether I'm in China or in Europe or the United States, a farmer, a grower has the same challenges outside the cultural challenges or differences. It's the same bloody thing. Same issue.
At the end of the day, it's farming.
Yeah.
It is. It is. It's I mean, a farmer goes to work every day. He doesn't know. He looks at his weather. We got all kind of technology. He or she doesn't know whether or not it's going to rain, snow, going to be a windstorm, and they have plans on top of plans, all right, to deliver our potatoes. And they're the folks in the front line that make it all happen. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We're very fortunate for your expertise and for our growers as well. Absolutely. So,
I appreciate that.
yeah, and I think this is going to be kind of a bigger question, but we know it all starts with the growers and our field and our agricultural programs. And we actually spoke with Donnie Cropshide a few episodes back about the one pile idea that we have. But we would really like to hear your depth of expertise in the entire potato life cycle, if you will, and what that means to us at Lamb Weston.
Yeah. So, and that's a great question because in the big pile theory, it's to afford Lamb the greatest flexibility, right? Meaning that Lamb sells into chain accounts, food service, retail, all the various dimensions of how we market our products. The big pile theory is designed, and I'm sure Donnie has shared this, but it's designed to give us the plants and the commercial team the greatest flexibility to align that raw product, right, with all the variables that happen during a growing season, to align that product with the commercial plan, with the manufacturing plan, so that we give that customer the same experience each and every time, right? Every time they buy from Lamb, it should be, we take all those variables and try to level them out so that they don't have to go through the pain of all those variables and all those volatility issues that we deal with, right? So the big pile is to make sure that we deliver what our customers expect each and every time. That gives us that flexibility. So on the ag side, we also have the luxury of being able to do everything from seed breeding. We don't actually do the seed breeding, but we have partners all over the world that help us to develop seed varieties that we use in each one of our growing regions around the globe. To the trials, we have a team of people that take these breeding varietals, and we trial them each and every year. So we go through an extensive varietal testing program. And then we also have the customer adoption program that reports up to the ag. So we actually take these varietals and then we test them for blanching, for starch, for sensory, all the characteristics that go into make a great French fry. So we have that kind of end to end from seed breeding development all the way to the customer adoption. And we don't talk a lot about that, but it really is the basis for our entire big pile program, right? We have 7 approved varieties that we use in the Pacific Northwest that are customer approved varieties, early season, mid season, late season varieties that make up the pile. And throughout the year, things happen to that pile, right? Growing conditions, disease issues, the teams are always working on all that volatility. And we make sure it's supplied and we make sure it's cost competitive and we make sure it's sustainable. And then we make sure that the customers try to get that same product each and every time. That's basically how the big pile thing, in my mind, that's how it works. It's the greatest flexibility for Lamb Weston to achieve what it needs to achieve for its customers. So,
Yeah.
And on that too, like the potato to know, like, I know you talked a lot about the trialing with the different companies. Is that just truly like trial and error? Like every time, like from the, because we had to start somewhere. And I know you said you only been with Lamb since 2008. And so there was obviously some of that work had already started.
yeah.
But can you talk a little bit about that too? Of like, how does that start? Or is it really just like, okay, we're going to pick one or we have some of these seeds and we're going to trial and error it? Like, can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's a great question because the seed breeding is a whole different business, meaning that we work with universities in the United States on seed breeding. So we'll have universities, targeted universities that have programs around taking potato tissue, literally a tissue, and they will put together that tissue with the characteristics that make up a good potato in that variety, in that region.
Wow.
They will offer that to us and say, we think this would work in your region. All right, so that's where it all starts. From that tissue, then it goes into the development phase. There's a whole lot of science in the middle of that, right? When it gets to a point where we say, okay, it's past that phase, and there's tiers in this process, right? When it gets through that phase, that could be 4 years, 5 years trialing. Then once we say, okay, it's matched off all these characteristics that Lamb thinks it needs for its customers, then we actually go to the field trials. So we'll take those varieties, and right now we have a pipeline of 80 to 85 different varietals that have gone through the tissue phase, right, the development phase with the seed breeders or the universities, and then we take them to a trial. Now that might take 3 years, sometimes 4 years. There are phases along the way that we try to pass or fail each year, again depending on what our characteristics are that we're looking for. If everything works right, after 10 years, we narrow it from 80 down to one or two. It's
Oh
amazing.
my gosh.
Wow, that's incredible.
So,
A
um,
diamond in a rough of a potato.
For
literally, and I
real.
and I and I am paraphrasing because there's a lot of smart people on our team that actually work through all the science of this. And Tom Drader, who's our resident PhD who works on the seed breeding, Chandler DeLizo, who's also a PhD in our team, who manages all the trials, collecting data, working with our growers to make sure we understand what the impacts are on these varieties. So there's a tremendous amount of work that goes in to develop that optimum potato that fits our customer profiles, that'll actually fry at the levels that we expect it to for our customers. So now that's a traditional seed breeding program that's been adopted for many, many, many years. There's all kinds of technology, and that's maybe for another Tater Talk podcast in the future. It's when you get into those things like GMO, right? When people ask, is it genetically modified? I know those are a bad acronym. We do no GMO potatoes on our portfolio, and we tell our customers that we don't. But at the end of the day, if you wanted to cut that 10 to 15 years of development in half, it's possible. Science says you can. But what science can't tell you to the consumer is exactly what that means to the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of education, and that's where modern ag gets a bad rap a lot of time because this mad scientists that are creating that. So that's another topic. But there is technology out there and research that we are pushing hard to try and understand that could take that development time and go in half. Why is it important to go in half at some time in the future? Maybe it won't be in my career, but it certainly be will someone in the ag business because the environment is changing so fast.
Mm-hmm.
When I get questions about what are you doing about weather volatility, all right, the first thing I say, well, it's getting hotter. We've got data that'll show it's getting hotter. Well, what does that do to our crops? And what are we going to do with water and all the other issues? Science can fix that as long as consumers believe that there is the same two or equal type of success with that product. So again, that's another topic I'd love to have at another date, but it really is germane to the ag business. 'Cause I don't care if you're in the potato business or wheat business or apple business. every single commodity out there right now has to deal with, on the food supply side, on whether or not science is going to let them, or the consumer is going to let science help some of this volatility in the future.
Hmm.
So Lamb spends time developing that and making sure we're ready for that when that happens.
Yeah. That's
Amazing.
awesome. And you're just, I mean, we're just clocking all the future episodes that
Yeah.
we already have
Like
Tom
Yeah,
5.
actually on our
yeah,
list to
yeah,
talk to too. So I'm like, great. I'm gonna just hound him about
Yep.
seeds because
yeah.
I'm like,
Well,
tell me everything.
Tom is again, he's enormously talented. He works with seed breeders all over the world and local universities here. There's a whole nother world when he gets into seed breeding. Uh,
Hmm.
I look at it from more of an economic standpoint. So, okay, if you got 80 and I got 80 varieties, this is going to cost me how much to get each year, and what is my success rate when I do, just like any other innovation, right? You spend
Hmm.
money on innovation, everybody, expects that there's a rate of return. Our rate of return on the ag side development through the traditional breeding process could take 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. Gosh.
So in today's world and in history, when there wasn't as much volatility, that was okay. Going forward,
Hmm.
more volatility, someone says economically, what are you doing to solve that?
Hmm.
And that's an educational process. And that's where I get into modern ag has tools, but we haven't been very good at telling consumers how good modern ag is.
Hmm.
Typically, we don't. Um, and that's something that all ag industries got to deal with here in the future from our food supply. So anyway,
Yeah.
there's my soapbox speech for seed breeding development, and Tom would be a great one for future podcasts on how that
Yeah.
works. So
No, it's interesting to hear about. I mean, Rachel and I say this probably every episode. You think of the fry and you look at it and it seems so simple, but there's so much that goes into it on the back end. I mean, uh, seeds, trials, innovation, sustainability. I mean, we've got so many topics that we need to cover. So this is it's great to
yeah,
hear all of the different areas you talk about.
yeah. Again, for me, towards the end of my career, for me, I spend a lot of time trying to make sure that people understand, a lot of our consumers, that modern ag isn't a bad guy. We don't
Hmm.
necessarily go out there to try and have carbon emissions above whatever the standards are. If we can't protect that soil, if we can't protect that environment, then it won't be sustainable.
Hmm.
We couldn't feed that demand. So there's inherent in there. But again, what we don't do as an ag industry is tell that story very well. We just don't. Um, Very few people like to get into the dirty side of the ag business, which is it's a 7 day a week job and it's hot and it's dirty and it's all that kind
Hmm.
of stuff to get that French fry when you want it, how you want it, at the cost you want it, right? There's a whole
Hmm.
backdrop to that, but and consequently we get the industry gets a bad rap, so it's our
Yep.
fault for pushing hard on that. So we're trying to change some of that, and the sustainability side would be another podcast deal. That could be another really
Yes.
good one.
Without a doubt. Well, we're here to help spread the word. So
Yes.
There you
whatever,
go.
we're
I'm
here to
all
help
in.
you in that.
I'm
Yeah.
all in. I'm all in.
Awesome. I love it. Well, unless Rachel, you had something else, but I think, Steve, is there anything else that you would like to leave with the audience before we depart today?
Yeah. Again, again, just for the audience, it's the ag team is a tenured, long legacy group. There are a group of experts here that make something that looks maybe outwardly difficult. They make it look easy each and every day. I have the privilege of
Hmm.
traveling around the world to put ag teams together. As I said earlier, growers and their challenges are the same all over the world. So it's really a privilege to be able to do that and work with such a great team. So we're in good position. We've got tenured people. We got people that know how to manage our number one cost input, which is raw potatoes. So we're in a good position. We attack each one of these issues each day and make sure potatoes get to that plant. That's the goal. We get them there. So
Well, and like Haley said too, we're very fortunate for you and your team because if we didn't have the potatoes, none of us would be here and none of us would have our fries. So
Exactly.
exactly.
what you do is so pivotal to not just our business, but to so many people's enjoyment. So we're very fortunate.
I
Yes.
appreciate that. Well, thank you guys for considering me in this. And again, we've got several talented people on the team that can talk about sustainability or seed breeding at another levels that could be even more enlightening on how that works.
We appreciate it, Steve.
Yes,
Oh.
thank you so much.
You guys have a great day.
That's all for today's episode. We want to say thank you to Steve for sharing all of his expertise on the potato life cycle. I think he wanted to say, like, modern agriculture gets a bad rap. I don't even think I knew everything that modern agriculture did to even know if it had a good or a bad rap.
No, I just knew that it was the way we were able to feed everybody and provide the French fries that we do. So yeah, really cool opportunities to talk about the potato life cycle with him and all of our efforts to grow these potatoes sustainably, so that way we can end up with these awesome French fries.
Yeah. So awesome. Thanks y'all for listening. Thank you, Steve. And we'll see you next time on Tater Talk.
Thank you.
Sorry, I don't know if I